Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Creative Healer of the week. We've got the beautiful Martina, who we're going to get an opportunity to speak to and learn about more what she does. I'm Michelle Hirschman with Hirschman Clinical Services. We do coaching work with folks with mental health, eating disorders, and substance abuse issues. We're mobile. We'd love to have the opportunity to connect with you if you need any support. And we can also help support you to all these creative healers. So if you're not sure which one might be a good fit, please reach out and we can help you with that. We are going to now have Darcy, lead coach and director of outreach of Hirschman Clinical, who's going to read Martina's bio. Darcy?
Hi, all. I am so thrilled to be here every week. It's such a treat. And this week is no exception. We have Martina Pezzino, a certified nutrition consultant, holistic health coach, and ritual facilitator today. Martina is dedicated to empowering busy moms to nourish themselves and flourish in motherhood. By integrating holistic nutrition, guided rituals, and nervous system healing, Martina helps women unlock their life force energy, enabling them to embrace their beautiful lives with vitality and balance. And I have a feeling this will apply to people who identify as mothers and not in the traditional sense. Um, the two areas of specialty that Martina says she loves sharing about are how nutrition and herbs can actually be tools to heal the nervous system. I know I need that. And two, cycle syncing for nutrition, work, and life to prevent burnout. So I am going to pass this back over to Michelle and open up the conversation.
Yay. Thank you, Darcy. All right, Martina. So we actually met in a really unique way. I'm kind of excited to finally be here with you. I remember meeting you for the first time. I'm like, she is somebody I want to know and understand and see. So I'd love to get started with knowing why you got into this type of coaching work for mothers and other folks. And I feel like that's your specialty is the mamas. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, currently it is. And first, well, thank you for holding the space for us. I'm so thrilled to connect with you here. And, it's interesting. I think so many of us who hold space and coach and support others, we really get to support like a past version of ourselves, right? That for a lot of us, that's how we get into this work is like offering support that we wish we had had at some point. And I am deep in my motherhood journey right now. I'm really in the trenches. I have an almost 5-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. And that's really the focus of my healing work right now. And I can really see over the next few years, decades, lifetime, how much our work gets to evolve and change. And as Darcy said, so much of what we're talking about is applicable to anyone looking to support their bodies. And especially if you have a womb or identify as a woman or feminine energy, it's all really connected. But, I really was drawn to supporting mothers because I became a mom in 2020, March of 2020, which if you recall was wild times. And at that point, I was already a nutrition coach. I'd been working for a couple years as a fertility coach, so really deep into hormone support and fertility work. And my health was like pretty dialed in. Like I felt pretty good about my routines and I was finding balance in my body. Became a mom and it all fell apart. Like it all just fell apart. And I did this for a living and I could not figure out how to actually take care of myself in the middle of a pandemic with this new baby. And this lasted for years, like 2.5 years into my motherhood journey was just this blur of like exhaustion, depletion, imbalance. I was not taking care of myself. And this is pervasive among so many, I would say, women identifying folks in general, the way we're really brought up and conditioned to support others and serve others. It is ingrained in us, both biologically and by society. And especially those in somewhere in their motherhood journey, we're putting ourselves last. We're trying to pour from a completely empty cup. And even if we know the things in our head that we should be doing, making them happening, like embodying them in our lives is just totally a different thing. So about 2 years into my motherhood journey, I hit a kind of a breaking point. At that point, I had paused my coaching business because I was like, I can't even figure this out for me. Like I can't show up and help people right now. I need to like really figure out what this looks like now. And 2 years in, I hit a breaking point and really just kind of like went back to basics. And it was really incredible over the course of just a few weeks, months, how I transformed. Once I got back into nourishing my body, like fueling myself with what I actually need, and was healing my nervous system for the first time in my life because motherhood had pushed my nervous system to a breaking point, and just like completely came out the other side even more connected and thriving and energized than I was before I became a mom. So now I'm looking around at other moms being like, oh, wow, we don't have to settle for exhaustion and depletion and overwhelm and burnout. And this applies to anyone who feels like they're in a helping position or a service position. We burn ourselves out to serve others. And I really experienced how much more I can show up for others when I'm resourced physically, emotionally, spiritually. So that was really my journey. I really had to go deep into the darkness of motherhood, like burnout and exhaustion, before I could figure out how to implement the things my brain knew into my actual reality, into my new life. And now I get to do that for other women and other moms, and it's such a gift.
I love it. I love it. Can you share with us kind of the different pieces that you offer? Because I know you offer individual work, so I'd love to hear more about like what somebody would expect to like what they would expect in like an initial session, and then also some of the group stuff that you're housing too, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So my work has really evolved through the years. I started out really nutrition focused, and that is still the foundation of a lot of what I do because food really is the fuel. It's the foundation for how our cells function, how our hormones, neurotransmitters, like everything is working. But I also found very quickly that it goes way beyond food. Like you can't out eat a dysregulated nervous system. You cannot out eat a disconnected like soul journey, like if we're not living in alignment with ourselves or listening to ourselves. So my work now really gets to weave together the nutrition, the nervous system healing, and the spiritual connection, the sacred space of healing through more of an energy lens. And the way that's structured these days is I do offer some one-on-one pathways, only a few at a time, because I really go deep with people. And that is a really like in-depth, like high touch container where we go through an analysis of really holistic wellness. How are you feeling physically in your body? What are your hormones telling you? What are your daily routines looking like? Where are the gaps in your energy, in your thriving, in your joy? And we go deep into that analysis, and then we get to personalize our time to really address those pillars of nutrition, nervous system healing, and kind of sacred spiritual connection. And it's really broken down. Primarily, we're working on balancing blood sugar, hormones, and the nervous system. That's really what it comes down to. And when those pieces are in place, it just unlocks this vitality that we all crave so much. So the one-on-one pathway gets to be super personalized. And I have a couple spots open actually in March right now that I'm calling in a couple of soul aligned clients to come and work with me one-on-one who are ready to go deep. But my program that I really love hosting and that I do regularly is called Thrive Mama. And this is the group setting because I also find there's such power in community connection. We were not meant to mother alone, to heal alone, and we really need that village. So the way that program is set up is you get access to this online portal with tons of pre-recorded, like deep dive videos on all the topics of healing that you need. It's like a really in-depth kind of online course, except we go through it together week by week with a focus, with an intention. You get live coaching calls, you get a community chat, and that will be enrolling in April is the next cohort coming in. So in just a few weeks. And that's been really just my favorite space to hold because not only do I get to offer my medicine, but watching all these moms bring in their medicine and support each other, it's just like next level support and healing that I really love. So those are two of the main nutrition pathways that we're working with right now. But the last thing you were referencing, because I got a lot of things in the fire right now, is more of a sacred container for those who are really seeking to connect more deeply into their spirituality, into their cycle work. I get to co-host a sacred cycle syncing container a few times a year with a dear friend of mine, and that is like deep spiritual, energetic healing around connecting with our cycles, our cycle wisdom, with food, with ceremony, with energy work. And that is, doors are open today. It's happening. We're really excited to welcome in the spring session. So those are the three kind of main things that we're holding right now. And there's something for everyone on wherever they're at in their journey.
Is the cycle one in person or virtual?
It is virtual. Yep, it's all virtual. All of those options, yep, are available virtually.
And is it live? Like,
It
is
is.
there?
Yeah, it is live. So the way it works, it's a whole moon cycle, and we meet every single week together, and we really deepen into the energy of what the moon is doing. We could go on a whole tangent if you want about the moon connection with our menstrual cycles and our bodies. It's so powerful. It's so cool. And so we start at the new moon, and then every week we meet for a whole like hour and a half long ceremony, and we lean into what's the energy of the moon, the corresponding menstrual phase, and then nutrition and herbal allies that are going to unlock our vitality and our balance within the moon energy and the menstrual phase. And we do that every week for 5 weeks for a lunar cycle. And we meet live together virtually.
That's really awesome. And is that Overland Park?
Nope, it's still virtual. It's online. So we're all just meeting on the Zooms.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool, because then we can like get everybody national.
Yeah, exactly. I find I'm connecting with people all over the US and all over the world. So it's really nice to be able to offer this virtual space. Yeah.
Can you share with us a little bit about like the nutritional element and like what you might advise kind of a typical person that works with you? Like, do you come up with like meal plans, or what is it looking like?
Yeah, I think we do get to personalize things quite a bit, but one thing I say often is it goes way beyond food. It's not really about the food, like it is about the food, but it's not really about the food, because if it was, I could just give you a meal plan and send you on your way. And anyone who's been through or bought meal plans or recipe books knows that like that's not it. Like that's not enough, for 99.9% of us. It goes beyond that. So yeah, my coaching and Thrive Mama, the group program, you get tons of recipes, meal ideas, meal plan examples. But the real medicine I find comes in educating about body connection, body awareness, and building your own intuitive pathway for how do I listen to what my body is asking for. And so for most people, that really comes down to, I find most women, and especially moms, comes down to eating more food, period. Most of us are under eating and actually need more fuel than we're getting. And especially eating more of the fuel that matters, right? Like we could all probably think of food that offers calories without a whole lot of nutrients. And nutrients are really what keeps our cells and tissues and hormones thriving and going. So we're really trying to find the balance with, are you fueling enough? Are you nourishing enough with the protein, fruits, vegetables, fiber, healthy fats, all the things that you need? And how can we build it into your life in a sustainable way? My approach is really all about balance and intuition with yourself, like responding to what your body's asking for. Because I really believe our body holds the wisdom already. It's just a matter of like figuring out how to hear it over all the noise out there. And so I offer evidence-based practices, things I've seen work with clients, and then I personalize with you. How are you feeling in that? How can we actually make that work into your schedule? Okay, when is baby's nap time? When are we eating lunch? Let's figure it out. When are we planning our meals? What kind of like on-the-go snacks do you need because you're in the car all day? And it really is transformative. Some of these basic things of like, when I eat enough food and I drink enough water, my body can unlock and really thrive. But it's usually not as simple as here's a list of foods to eat. We really get to go deep into, like I think at its core, it's like self-love stories, self-love wounds, self-worth wounds. It's like, I deserve to take up this space. I deserve to invest this energy, this money in high quality food, this time into myself. And so it really gets to go much deeper. But those are the main nutritional pillars, and some common patterns I see is like eating enough food, getting enough protein and fiber, and then finding super sustainable ways to get it into your day. Because I always say, if it's stressing out your nervous system, it's not healthy. I don't care how good a diet is for you. If it's going to stress you out, it's not helping. It's not healthy. And so it's finding your balance of where can we nudge the needle up so we get more nourishment, more fuel, more balance without adding more stress. And that's where coaching is so, like, coaching works. That's where coaching is so important, is to have someone alongside with you to reflect and brainstorm and strategize to make it fit into your life.
Well, I love the mindfulness and consciousness you bring to it, right? Because I think as especially newer moms, and let alone having the second kid, the third kid, there's just this kind of frantic energy and like trying to figure out what your needs are and trying to figure out how to juggle what's in front of you, and to have a coach that is helping you come up with creative solutions and bringing it to the forefront so that it doesn't get lost is so important. And that's why I love that community that you're building, because I feel like that is um, so crucial also for like mama's mental health,
Yeah.
right? Because you feel so alone in the trenches. I mean, I definitely had postpartum with my first, and it was like scary and lonely.
It
You
really
know?
is. It really is. And it's so isolating and it can feel all consuming when we're in it, whether we have, postpartum depression, anxiety, or whether we're just burned out and disconnected. And, the nutrition mental health connection is so interesting because mental health is so complex, as you know, and it goes way beyond food. Like, there are times and places for all sorts of interventions and medications and support. And it's incredible what we can do when our body is in balance, how much we can support with those symptoms, with the overwhelm, with even preventing or supporting postpartum depression and anxiety from a food and herbal perspective. It really is often exacerbated. It's like spun even bigger because we are in a state of fight or flight in our body because we don't have enough nourishment. So our body thinks we're in a famine, but we're also trying to feed a baby. We're not sleeping. We are, our thyroid is depleted from pregnancy and we haven't rebalanced it. There's so many things that we can support holistically, and while we get, the other support that we need too, of course. But a lot of us aren't aware of those tools, or we know them in our brains and we haven't learned yet how to get them in our lives in a sustainable way.
Absolutely. When you are seeing someone individually, which it does sound like that practice is pretty small because you're doing these beautiful community groups, which seems really powerful. How frequently are you usually seeing people?
Yeah, we get to personalize that based on your goals and your timeline. My favorite is to do 12 weeks together, and to lay foundations, and we meet about once a week. The second half, we sometimes spread out by every couple of weeks. We have a couple of integration weeks, I call them, where we'll have sort of a bigger package we talk through that week. And then we get a sort of integration week where we're not adding anything new. We're just integrating, problem solving, catching up. So, but about weekly, we meet for a full hour, and really get to dive in. And in those sessions, I find there is real medicine. This is in my group programs as well. There's real medicine, not just in strategizing in the brain, but because of my passion and my experience in holding sacred space, we also weave that into our sessions. We start our sessions with dropping into our body, with welcoming and healing energy, with learning how to hear our intuition. We get that guided practice. So before we meet live, you're watching these deep dive videos, you're learning in your brain the strategies, the things to do, the shifts to make. And then when we meet, we integrate together into the body, into embodiment. We help the nervous system expand to hold it. And that, I think, is really hard to do on your own without a teacher next to you that has been through it and that can offer that guidance and support.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. I'm plugging into all these community groups all the time. I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
ladies, get grounded. But yeah, I've had the luxury of participating in a live. Martina does lots of things, and one of them are these sacred women circles that are so beautiful. And it's definitely really helps ground. So I can only imagine these other circles for mamas of all varieties. Um, awesome. I kind of want to open it up just because I'm sure everybody has like their own unique questions they might want to ask. And then I'm going to dive back in because I have like other questions for myself.
Okay.
I want to open it up, you guys. Does anybody have any specific questions for Martina yet? Darcy, do you want to maybe get started?
Absolutely. So one thing that you said about like you phrased it differently, but it's like we can't eat our way into a healed nervous system, or eat our way out of an unhealed nervous system. I forget how it's all like crossing in my brain now. So it's like, huh. So I'm curious if there's something that you found that and that you include in your, in your work and connection with others. Is there something that you find is very common that keeps nervous systems dysregulated? And what is a shortcut to be able to regulate that and then utilize more of the tools that you're talking about that can be, that are very simple maybe and can be tougher to implement on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, what a beautiful question. And I think it's an interesting point because I teach the nervous system as kind of a two-way street because while we can't eat our way out of a dysregulated nervous system, we can support the nervous system by balancing our blood sugar, balancing our hormones, healing our neurotransmitters with enough healthy fats. Like all these things actually create safety in the body. So I like to come at it from both sides. We are supporting the nervous system with food, but if that's all we're doing, there is like an upper limit of how good we're going to feel, right? And so in answer to your question about like what's keeping us stuck, I think my mind immediately went to, I mean, all kinds of deep-seated beliefs around urgency and productivity that we get to unravel together. It is amazing what changes in your body when we just stop rushing so dang much. Like, and if you pay attention in your day, so many of us notice that even when we're on our own timeline, we are rushing from one thing to another. And layered on top of that, I would say multitasking is a big thing that is keeping our nervous system totally dysregulated and in fight or flight. We were not programmed to hold all of that. And so even now, as you're listening, do we have our email open? Are we checking Instagram? When we're talking to our kids, are we also trying to like reply to that message? And it's, not that we can't listen to a podcast while we do laundry, but really being aware of where am I cramming in so much. And the other thing that I think, other than the food pieces of the blood sugar is so big for the nervous system, keeping us stuck in fight or flight. I really think lifestyle wise, the circadian rhythm is a really big piece. So when we stay inside all day, when we're staring at screens all day, we have artificial lighting, we have phones in front of us, we are really causing our circadian rhythm to live in a state of like chaos and confusion. And many of us don't know or haven't been taught that the circadian rhythm is really deeply connected to our hormones. And the circadian rhythm is part of what keeps our hormonal cascade, our processes going in the body. And so if our circadian rhythm is way overstimulated, over like out of whack, it thinks it's like 2 o'clock p.m. all day long because of the blue light coming at us. When we're inside all day and disconnected from nature, from the trees, from the soil, from the sun, that is keeping us stuck in a state of survival and fight or flight. So some simple things that really shift this. I mean, blood sugar balance for anyone experiencing that nervous system dysregulation, blood sugar balance is one of the first places we go. And there's so many strategies with that, but balanced breakfasts, eating protein with your snacks, hydration and minerals, all of these things are really key. And when it comes to the urgency and the multitasking, that's where I find, I talk about nervous system set points as part of a practice. So one thing I have my clients do is you start your day with a practice where you set your nervous system set point for the day, kind of like a thermostat. Like you're setting your nervous system at wherever you want to function for the day ahead. And if you think about the first 20 minutes of your day, for a lot of us, it is reactive. You wake up and immediately jump into checking your phone, checking emails, rushing out the door, trying to get your kids ready. Mom, I'm hungry. Like it's one thing after another. And instead, if we create a small buffer, it doesn't have to be a whole big thing, but a small buffer to set your nervous system, breath work, meditation, mindfulness, guided visualization, anything for 5 minutes, 10 minutes to set your nervous system for the day, over time, that actually does shift the baseline of where we function. And I find it's really powerful to shift that programming away from, I'm not late. I'm safe in my body. We're okay. We have time. And that's a powerful practice to try. And when it comes to the circadian rhythm, there's so much that goes into that, but just getting in the dang sun does a lot. So those are actually three of the strategies I have people do when we're in, like to triage a situation. If we're in overwhelm in the moment, you eat a snack, balance your blood sugar, you check in with your nervous system through breath work, meditation, somatic exercises. Sometimes when we're anxious, sitting still and breathing is not the answer. Sometimes we have to move it. We have to move the energy. We dance, we shake, we run, whatever it is, we move it out. So snack, nervous system check-in, and then sunshine. Those are three medicines that you can implement proactively, but also reactively to reset our bodies.
Thank you so much. The multitasking is like, okay. Like,
it's a biggie.
And I'm wondering, similar to what you talked about, Martina, with if it was as simple as giving, information, then you could, for example, like just create I know that's not a just, and create a simple meal plan and give it to somebody. Similar to that, I know it's like there's a lot of habits and routines and beliefs and emotions and all of the things that go around simple routines like eating, what we eat, when we eat, how we rest. I'll say we as a humans, right? And me. And with the multitasking, it's very much, not just built into my day a lot of the time because of how culture is. And there's such a high demand and high stimulation. It also, on a personal note, I'll share it's built into a lot of how I am, that if I have an audio playing, I'm able to focus differently, on a physical task. So with that, I'm curious if there's any suggestions that you have, not just for, us as a culture who, we're in such a high demand in this chase to produce and the desperate need for real rest, but also for anybody like me and me who multitasking actually supports me in absorbing certain materials that feel really nourishing for me. How could I approach that in a way that would maybe be a little bit kinder to my nervous system while still honoring some of my authentic desire?
Yeah. Yeah. What a beautiful question. Does anyone else feel like this that's here? Like yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So I think a couple of things. I do find, and when I say multitasking, I do think it's important to pay attention to what demand on our focus is there, because I even find it really nourishing and helps keep me present when I'm doing something kind of mindless, like folding laundry, and listening to a podcast or a course or something that does nourish me. And so I think that does not feel activating in the nervous system. So there is some self-awareness and like, what does this task demand from me? And there is also real medicine in stillness. And a lot of us are so uncomfortable with silence and stillness. And so I'm on a constant journey of trying to build that in a way that does feel safe to my nervous system. Because what this comes down to is really when our nervous system is in a set point, that thermostat set point of overstimulation, anything less than that feels deeply uncomfortable. Like it feels like we're going to die in our bodies. That's how it feels. And so sometimes, like, I'll even feel this at times. I can tell I'm dysregulated when I can't be with something. When I'm watching a training video and I like impulsively pick up my phone and feel like I have to be scrolling, or like it's those moments where I can tell it's because I'm dysregulated and my nervous system is seeking stimulation because being still feels unsafe. So that's where this deeper work around creating the set point every day proactively. I think of it like, responding in the moment is great, is powerful, but proactive is so important. It's like taking your vitamins every day, it's like really practicing pouring into the cup. When I'm calm, when everything's good, practice the nervous system tools. And then when you need it in the moment, that's like the antibiotic that like we need in the moment. It's still helpful, but it's also great to take your vitamins, right? So we have both proactive and reactive tools. So, in answer to your question, I think notice what the energy demand is. Is this something that truly has space for me to also nourish myself by learning, by connecting, by being on the phone with someone? Like, that's beautiful. That's great. And sometimes it's a coping mechanism because the nervous system feels unsafe. So, learning how to recognize the difference for yourself and really like it is sort of a retraining of the nervous system to learn how to feel safe with less stimulation, which is how our bodies were designed, but not how most of us were raised in this modern world. And that's why it feels so unsafe in the body. The nervous system likes the status quo. It does not like change. Change is super scary to the nervous system. Even change, like normally I listen to this podcast on my walk, but today I'm just going to listen to the birds and be with my thoughts. That can feel so uncomfortable at first because the nervous system is not used to that amount of spaciousness. Like it feels unsafe. So I'd be curious over time if you can feel into the difference between what's the energetic demand or am I trying to add stimulation to cope and keep my nervous system activated because that's what's sort of keeping me running right now as a baseline.
I love that.
People
I love
think
that word.
there's
Can
not
I add something?
Yeah, please.
So Darcy, I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a certified holistic nutritionist, specialize in working with trauma navigators. And so I was like, I got this. I am skilled. It wasn't until I went on a 7-day Reiki retreat where I was at an eco style retreat. So I was in Costa Rica. So literally in the middle of the jungle, I woke up every day at 5 a.m. Howler monkeys singing to me over my hut. It was not until I was there that on the third day, I was like, this is what being regulated actually feels like. Oh my gosh. And so, kind of to go back to one of your original questions, in my work, and I think very similarly to Martina's work, most people have never actually been regulated their entire life. So, step one is to actually experience true regulation for the first time so you know when you're just barely slipping out of it. I can tell you that after doing that, and then I went into the Miami International Airport. I felt like my soul was being attacked. I got so overwhelmed. And I was like, this is like an everyday experience. I travel all the time. Like my mom lives in Miami. This is a normal experience for me. But it felt completely new because my body had actually experienced regulation for long enough that all of this stimuli was actually too much. So I think step one is really teaching people exactly what Martina just said. Until you're regulated, you're never actually going to know what the other path feels like. So it's really to teach yourself, I'm always dysregulated because that's all that you really know. Just my 2
Beautiful.
cents.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's where I find that nervous system set point practice in the morning is really helpful for people before your day gets going. You can do it any time of day, but for most of us, before your day gets going, really setting up your energy for where you want to operate. And it gives you the chance to practice. What does it feel like to be safe in my body, to be still, to be fully present? Because as Vanessa said, a lot of us, I had not experienced that until I was like 30 freaking years old, like ever for a moment. And I love supporting that from the nutrition side because it's amazing what happens when we just balance our dang blood sugar. And then, like, we have so much more capacity to address the rest of it, to go down into the roots. But if we're in a state of like unsafety right here on the surface, we can't get to the roots. We have to create that balance first, or at least alongside with the blood sugar, with the digestion, with the fuel, with all of it, because it's all so connected to that. Yeah, thanks for adding that, Vanessa. That was beautiful.
It's so true. The morning rituals, I'm always into the rituals, is so crucial because I realized like I was doing really well with it. And then I'm like, oh, I could probably not, and I cannot. And there is this frenzy, chaotic energy for me when I don't insert. And I'm thinking to myself, my head will start making it bigger. It'll be like, oh my God, this is going to take up so much time. And it's like, no, it's actually just like 5 minutes. It really will create a whole different day for me if I do that. And if I don't, it creates a whole different vibe. So I appreciate that reminder because sometimes your brain, like my head can get ahead of me and like convince me of other things that aren't good for me.
Mm.
And I also wonder about these resets because I do feel like when you've been living in that kind of hyperarousal for so long, I mean, it sounds like Vanessa, you went to this beautiful Reiki Costa Rica trip. You're like, holy shit, like I just, I had no idea that I could feel like this. And I think, for myself, I can think about, I'm about to put myself in one right now. On Thursday, I'm going to Portugal. So I'm about to reset and I know I'm going to go through all those things. Martina, my sense is like some of the community groups and things that you're going to be doing probably creates that level of reset, just even plugging in on a regular basis to your groups, right? Like that could be very helpful for people that, can't just uproot and go somewhere.
Yeah, and I find sometimes we really crave and need like a full immersion experience, which is beautiful. And I've also seen that it's this idea of titration, which is the idea of adding a little bit at a time so as not to overwhelm the ecosystem. Like if you've ever made like mayonnaise and you like dump all the olive oil in at once, it like doesn't mix. But if you do a tiny bit at a time, it can like embody into the eggs, right? Like it's the same with your body and your nervous system. So I really think of like in our live coaching that we do with one-on-one clients, we meet every week and we spend the first chunk of time titrating with our nervous system and adding in a new strategy and practicing it in a container of safety and support. So you're with me. If you're in Thrive Mama, you're in this group chat, group support that you're getting my drop-ins every day. You're getting check-ins and support. So I also think there's a very valuable pathway for some people of baby steps, drops in the bucket. I talk a lot about like your bucket being full is like pure thriving, regulated nervous system, nourished body, fueled, alive. And so many of us feel like if I can't get my bucket to the top, there's no point. F it. Like I don't have time or energy to like do all the things. And so we either just dump our bucket out on the ground or we just leave it. We're like, I can't even. But we all would rather have our bucket be half full than empty, or like 3/4 full than half full. And so thinking about these things as drops in the bucket, it's not about perfection. It's not about, if you have access to a 5-day Costa Rica retreat, please do it. But if you don't, it's about what can I drop into my bucket today to add a little more balance, a little bit more regulation. And often that is just breathing in the morning. It's learning somatic practices to move energy in your body. It's being in community where you're seen and supported. Who we surround ourselves with is so incredibly transformative. And so if you're around, like I think about the motherhood culture in the world, and mom community is so important. But if we're in a mom community where we're just bitching 24/7, or we're just like stuck in the burnout and we're all like venting about it all of the time and there's no intention towards connecting in with the joy or connecting in with the healing potential, that's where you're going to get stuck. Like you have to be in a community that is operating at or above where you want to be. That is what really can lift us. That's the shortcut, I think, to living the life we want, is being around people who are living the life we want. and really getting to be in their energy. And so that's why the community aspect, I think, is just so powerful. It's why it's my favorite part.
I love that. The account, well, you talked about two things. One is the accountability, but also immersing yourself with other like-minded people that are on that path, right? Because you are going to get pulled from all these other mama overachievers that are trying to like, and you know where that heads them at some point, you know, and it's just not the lifestyle you want to have in the life that you want to be. So to have that community is so important. So
Yeah.
important. I love that. Natalie or Rachel, do you guys have any questions?
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. I didn't really have a question, but I wanted to share that how Martina has been helpful to me. And I know it's been a long time since we seen each other. But I actually saw her when I delivered at New Birth Company and was getting prenatal care with them during that time. I think a big part of it too, she's gave me a lot of tips that was a part of those like baby steps, like adding in a little bit at a time. And I started seeing her because like my iron had dropped like somewhere in my pregnancy. I was trying to get it back up before delivery. And I was really successful in doing that. And then I had another baby. So I don't know if you know that, Martina.
Didn't know that.
So
Congrats.
I also got to use the same
I
stuff
won't.
again to keep healthy in that. Um, but I think a big part too about it is like starting off from a moment of I forgive myself for dropping the ball at some point and just clear it. Because I think a lot of times too, people get stuck on, oh, well, I've had bad habits up until this point, and then it's that guilt. And then I also like meet a lot of other moms that kind of get trapped in that. But I feel like that's honestly like a small starting point, but a big starting point. Like if you could just be like, oh well, I messed up. Life got busy. I was, eating McDonald's for breakfast every day, whatever. But moving on, let's start with these small steps that I can incorporate. And it's even been like the small stuff like I love noodles. And I remember you like opened me up to like lentil pasta, which I didn't even know was a thing. And I'm like, wow, this is such a small change that I can like use in everyday meals just for me liking noodles, but it's better for me and like adding on just a small thing that I can drop in my bucket. So like I like the way you put that a lot of people just want kind of their buckets to be full, but like it's the little things like overall. I think from my very first kid in pregnancy, um, it was water. But like the provider told me like a certain amount of ounces per day. So it just felt really attainable. And I was like, whoa, if I could just get that water. And honestly, it didn't really feel like too much water. Like it wasn't like a nonsense, like a gallon a day or anything like that. But it was something that I felt was really attainable. And then I kept going and I was like, oh yeah, getting enough water is great for me. So just moving a little bit at a time, honestly, it's been really great. But yeah, I'm really happy to share that Martina was a part of my story and that just connecting on that level. I was really excited to see what was going on with you since then. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we've evolved a bit, but thank you so much for sharing that. That was so beautiful. And I think you're absolutely right about the self-forgiveness piece. And I find the more we work with food, the more I'm like, it's never about the food. Like it's not about the food. And so in your example, like it's about the affirmation I always come back to with my clients is I'm always doing the best I can with the tools I have. So if I don't like what I'm seeing in my life, it's because I need new tools. It's not because of who I am as a person or what I'm capable of. I'm always doing the best I can with the tools I have. And so what I love to do is just offer more tools of ways to feel more aligned with how you want to feel in your life every day. So thank you for bringing that up, Rachel. That means a lot.
I want to chime in. I don't have a question, but this has been really, really amazing to listen to and so helpful. And typically, like we work with, moms at CIR, but I'm thinking of like personal clients I work with as a therapist. And I'm working with a lot of people who are newly sober, who are, leaving treatment. And I feel like this conversation is so helpful for them as well. Like people who are still kind of struggling with mental health, not even being related to a mom. And it's just, it feels like such a universal conversation. So this has been really helpful for me to listen and learn.
Thanks, Natalie. Thanks for sharing that. You're so right. It really does, whether your season is a motherhood journey or through your work or through addiction or through caring for your aging parents. Like we all have whatever we're holding in our lives. And it all comes back to, am I fueled? And can I add some more regulation and safety into my body? It's really what it's about. Thank you.
And yeah, I mean, that's such a, thank you, Natalie, for chiming in on that. Cause it's so, I mean, yes, it's absolutely universal to be mindful of all of these things. It's just different challenges that we each have, right? So especially folks in early recovery, that we're just operating so differently for so long. You know, part of it's just education now, because they're like, wait, now what do I do? I'm actually conscious and paying attention. What do I need to put in my body? So it becomes the education. But that's such a good point for those listeners, especially who may not necessarily be mamas, which I think we all are mamas anyway, but you know, that just struggling with other things, they can totally extrapolate from
because oh my gosh, the nervous system work in that scenario, like how transformative to reconnect with safety in your body that you may not have felt for years and it comes again from the food side, but also from the somatic side, from the nervous system healing side, together get to create that safety. So the tools are so powerful for wherever we're at.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Let's see, anything else, you guys? I feel so like, so complete, Martina. Thank you so much. I love what you're doing. I'm so grateful you're in the world doing what you're doing. You're bright.
Thank you for holding this space. I want to share one quick thing about lunar living. I know we've talked a lot about my nutrition coaching, and that is like a huge piece of my work. But because of the season that I'm in right now, sharing about lunar living and opening this space up, it is a space that it's really the only thing I do that is catered not to mothers, that is really expanded out into anyone with a womb space or that connects to feminine energy, whether you're menstruating or not, whether you're pregnant or you're postmenopausal. We are all cyclical beings. And I think we haven't spoken too much about cycle work yet, but it's just a piece I'd love to weave in super briefly, because it is, other than nervous system healing, it is like the secret sauce to my thriving, is really understanding my cycles and honoring my cycles and getting that, like I almost think of it like a Rosetta Stone manual for my body and my energy. And when you get to work with it instead of against it, it is so transformative. So if you're hearing this conversation and some of the deeper themes of like productivity and self-worth and like pushing and burning out, if those feel present to you, like lunar living is the deep energy work around it, where we sit in ceremony, where we honor the lunar cycle, where we honor our bodies. You get cycle syncing strategies, but it really goes beyond just food, syncing. It really is the wisdom of the bodies. And it's like learning how to listen to and honor what your body's asking for in the moment. It's so powerful, and it's so amazing to see what happens in just a lunar cycle. So just wanted to present that cycle energy as well as we're talking about nervous system regulation and balance in the body, because we're not designed to show up the same way every day. We're just not. And we're so hard on ourselves when we like, oh, what's wrong with me? It's Saturday and I like need to get the house together and I just don't want to do it, and we're like, what is wrong with me? And we make it mean something about ourselves. It's just because you're on day 25, babe. Like it's not. And if you know that, you actually have a chance to be intentional about planning your life and setting up your schedules and your systems. And the workplace doesn't make it easy, and motherhood doesn't make it easy. And the narrative we've been taught doesn't make it easy, but it's so empowering to connect in with that knowing that like our cycles aren't a bother and they're not an inconvenience. They're actually like a roadmap to our energy. It's so cool.
I'm excited about that and getting the word out. Yeah, we'll have Darcy send us the email again, actually, if that would be okay, and I'll forward it to Darcy to add. I think it's great. I'm super curious about it. I have not dove in to that world as much as I could.
It's really powerful.
Yeah. Right on. Yay. All right. Any other lingering questions before we sign off with Martina? All right, ladies. Well, thank you again, Martina, for joining us.
Thanks for holding the space. This was so beautiful. It was so great to connect with all of you.
Thank you,
Thank
Martina.
you so much.
Yeah.